All right. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. That's an overview of the many topics we'll be discussing here on this week's 39th episode of Balls Deep Sports Talk. Please follow the show on Twitter at BDST Show, and like me, Scotty Dashball, on Facebook. Search Scotty Dashball. Alright, so what will we begin this week's hit opening segment with? Again, I'm very curious what the Balls Deep gambling game has as the odds-on favorite. I would definitely expect it to be NFL/Vikings tied with the Packers for first place related, and that is a very worthy candidate. But just maybe, I'm gonna pull a Houdini and call an audible on you. Who knows? T-Wolves undefeated on the road. Can't win at home. Loving watching the NBA season early on, but not enough to really be fired up about. Same with the Wild/hockey season. Loving watching it here early on, but not quite enough to be fired up about. Twins/baseball. That's off-season stuff. Like, you know, it's hard to be on fire for. Okay. UFC 193. Ooh, there is a very worthy candidate. I would think that would be the second favorite to lead off the segment in the gambling game. WWE, boy, huge news there regarding the title holder. So that is also worthy. NASCAR, again, they're not giving me enough to give back to you. So as soon as I can start paying it forward, I will. Miscellaneous stories, they're all miscellaneous for a reason. But I am going to call an audible. I'm not going to go with either of the big favorites, the UFC 193 preview or our NFL coverage / Vikings segment with your tied for first place Minnesota Vikings. Oh no. I'm going to go someplace that we don't go too often, especially not to start the show here, and that is the world of college football. Man, okay, so first and foremost, listeners of the show know this to be true. I've mentioned this before. I am much more an NFL guy than I am an NCAA football guy. I love all football, just the game of football, period. However, I enjoy it the most on the NFL level. That's just my taste. I'm not going to knock high school football for anything or college football for anything like that. It's just, I like it, but it's not my favorite like NFL football is. So that's all there is to that. But this college football season has been exceptionally entertaining and intriguing. Not just in who's winning and who's losing, the upsets, things of that nature. There's been hirings and firings galore when it comes to coaches for various reasons. It's just been a crazy, an awesomely crazy college football season. And there are two big stories in the college football world that I'm going to split here, left nut, right nut, left ball, right ball, excuse me, gave the pun away. Smooth, Scotty, real smooth. Yes, they are, thanks for noticing. But so two topics here for balls, for the hit opening segment. All right, you've waited long enough, say it with me, 3, 2, 1, balls on fire. All right, so this week for balls on fire, I am on fire specifically over two college football topics, but the whole world of college football has me fairly fired up, at least much more so than college football usually does. So I'm going to give it its props here on the show this week for doing that, having me in that state. We are going to start with the topic that had me the most fired up, that I found to be a fascinating story and situation of events unfolding that was extremely unique, unfortunate to a degree, fortunate to a degree, but unique might be the best word, at least that I can come up with at the moment. But it involves the University of Missouri, or Mizzou, as they are more commonly referred to, and their football program. Now, again, I heard this news as it was kind of just breaking. I believe it was Saturday night, late night on my way home, driving home from work. But the story goes that the University of Missouri's football team has, I believe, 32 players of color or African American heritage, whatever terminology you want to use that you find acceptable. It's always tricky in today's overly PC world, sometimes to know what is to be 100% certain what is an acceptable term and what isn't, or in what context one is and what isn't. But they have 32 African American males on their team, on their football team, and I do not know if there was a specific, final straw that broke the camel's back, or what the actual details on the other end were. They never really gave too many specifics on the coverage that I read, saw, and heard regarding that story in that matter. But the president of the university ended up resigning. And he did this because those 32 African American football players, on Saturday night, after their game, I believe, Sunday morning, somewhere in there, announced that they were no longer going to participate in any football activities, games, practices, any football activities of any kind, until the president of the school was fired or resigned, in regards to racial sensitivity or lack of racial sensitivity, and just various instances of him not treating people the way that I guess people feel they should be treated. Without too many of the specific details, it's hard to go too deep and judgmental into that. But when you've got so many people, and the football team wasn't even the first people in the university to stand up, and speak out in regards to this issue involving this person. There's another student on the university who was having a hunger strike before the football players did this. But so anyway, you had a lot of people who were much closer to the situation than me, or likely you, all saying basically the same thing about this guy, and how he is dealing with people of different heritages, races, ethnic backgrounds on his university. And so they all came together and took a stand and said, well, we're just, we're out until this guy is. And before they announced the resignation of the president, all the football players and coaches were seen in a photo together, stating that they were all united as a football team. That the staff and the other remaining players were joining those who had chosen, to basically strike. I mean, it's not striking. If I understand it's not striking technically. And then, very shortly after that, it was announced that person was resigning. It was also announced that the chancellor of the university, whatever that job entails will also be being replaced coming up here, within the next few months or whatever, very soon as well. Now keep in mind, this is at the University of Missouri, still very fresh off of the incidences in Frederickson, a very, an area that has heightened and raised levels of awareness, sensitivity, and also, courage, I guess, to stand up to injustices. So I think that's a big thing here too. Now, or if these events are taking place, or similar, events with similar people at other universities, you might not see such drastic backlash in regards to it, or such unified, retaliation. So the geographical location is a key ingredient in this story and what happened and how it played out. I was a little shocked to see the timing, how fast it was effective. And, again, I don't know a whole lot of specifics, so I don't want to cast too much judgment, but I found it to be, like I said, a really interesting, unique event and sports-related story. I couldn't really think of too many other times where situations were similar. Maybe in the Olympics with Jesse Owens. I don't know. I'm just trying to think back, but to see that, many people be united and take a stand against something, it was, you don't see it very often, and when you do see it, it's generally, a collective bargaining agreement or something lame. It's not about something that has some substance, and some meaning to everyone's lives, not just those involved in the sports side of it. But so that is what went down at the University of Mizzou this last weekend. Wanted to share those events with you, and I guess my main takeaway thoughts on it is simply that it is impressive and amazing and wonderful to see a group of human beings unite and, make a stand towards something they believe in from a moral standpoint without, doing anything to endanger or hate or hurt anyone else. And I just couldn't help, and then to see it work too was exceptional. But I just couldn't help but think back to the prior week then, listening to Sports Talk Radio, and everybody talking about the Greg Hardy incident in the NFL, how the pictures came out now of when he beat up his female better half that he was in trouble for. And how, you can be outraged and you can say that he shouldn't be able to play or whatever, but it's not going to affect anything. Everybody's going to tune in and watch. It's it's still going to make the money, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I had I acknowledged and agreed with that reality. I listened to Jonas Knox at the Jonas Knox on Twitter. He's probably my favorite sports talk show host, AM radio on Fox Sports. My favorite that's doing it right now. But he was talking about it last week. And I couldn't help but agree with him. Yes, the league or the team has the authority, to revoke his employment. Someone else will give him employment, so it really doesn't matter unless, he's banned. Do they need to be going out of their way to ban these people? That's, another question.